Hi guys, this is Zach from Watches on You, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the Breitling Navitimer 38. Now this is Breitling's kind of unisex option in the Navitimer lineup due to its smaller size, and they kind of gear this one actually a little bit more towards women in their advertising. However, I feel like this could be a very nice men's watch as well. So it has some very interesting elements of it. One cool thing about this is this has a beaded bezel. So now the actual history behind the beaded bezel is that the original Navitimers had bezels like these. They did not have the regular kind of toothed bezel that they have today. They had these beads here, so that actually goes back to kind of a classic vintage element from old Breitlings, which is a cool aspect about this timepiece. And then of course you get the slide rule as well. So the 38mm size on this, that makes this watch available to not only as a unisex option, but also to people that have smaller wrists. As the original Navitimer was kind of large, and people that have small wrists really couldn't, wear it that well just because it was so big. So now this watch I think would be a great option for people with smaller wrists because they have the smaller size. Now obviously you're not getting the chronograph like on the full-size Navitimer, which was what the original Navitimer was and always has been, but this is nice because it does incorporate design elements from its bigger brother, the Navitimer chronograph. So going on to the dial here, so as I said, it has a slide rule. So slide rule is basically a kind of it's basically kind of an analog calculator where based on how you slide the bezel, you can then figure out how to do different mathematical functions and conversions. So it can convert between speeds from like say miles per hour, kilometers an hour, nautical miles, than just regular miles, and then it can also convert like from gallons to liters and things, and it really has quite a lot of function, which is very nice thing to have. And they're good for pilots' watches is because they'll be they could be doing calculations mid-flight, and the slide rule is actually a way that they could do that. So it's just a very cool thing to have on a timepiece, and the Navitimer chronograph has that function as well. So the case on this piece, though, as I said, is 38mm. It's entirely polished, so that's both good and bad. One, it makes this watch definitely stand out. However, it does make it stand out, in my opinion, a little bit too much. It's a little bit too brash. I think it's a little bit too. It's too polished if you're wearing this. I'd say. For a man, I think the polished bracelet just goes a little bit overkill. I think it'd be good for a women's watch having the polished, as a lot of women's watches tend to be more polished than men's. But if you get this on a leather strap, I think that this could be a very, very nice men's watch. I just think that the huge amount of polished surfaces on this timepiece is a little bit much, in my opinion, if you're wearing this as a man's watch. So the case, though, overall is finished very nicely. I mean, there is a lot of polishing, but the polishing is done very nicely. No problems there. The bracelet's good quality. I wish they had fixed this kind of pressed metal clasp right here. As you can see, it's kind of a thinner pressed metal versus a kind of a milled metal like you'd see on Rolex watches and things of the like. But you do get high quality bar clasp, not pressed metal in here, so that's nice to see. So now going back to the dial and the movement. So the movement on this timepiece is an ETA 2824 movement. However, Breitling they bring the finishing of their movement that they get from ETA way up. They finish them in-house and bring them to very high quality standards, and they are of chronometer standard as well, so they'll be very accurate as well. You won't have to worry about that whatsoever. But now let's move on to the wrist shot. So I'm just going to take my glove off here. And on the wrist, this timepiece at 38mm, it's not too bad. So I have a 7.5-inch wrist, so I do have a rather large wrist. It's definitely above average sized. However, it does fit my wrist pretty well, and if you have a small wrist, I think that you could definitely pull this watch off. Again, I think that the fully polished bracelet and everything might make this watch look a little bit too feminine, but if you get this on the leather strap, I think that'd be great. I mean, the polished bracelet isn't bad, but I'd personally prefer this on a leather strap, and you'll save money with that as well, just because a leather strap is much cheaper than a stainless steel bracelet. But overall, I like the design cues from the original Navitimer, and yes, it's not a chronograph, so it's not sticking to the history of the Navitimer line, but I think it's still a good option to have out there for people that just have too small a wrist for the larger size, or they want something a little bit different. So I think that this would be a good option out there, and this also is made to appeal to women as well, as the Navitimer definitely was not a women's watch, the full-size Navitimer. So this watch comes in overall at a price point of $4,860 with the bracelet, which I think isn't too bad. You're getting a high-quality finished ETA movement. I mean, you do see in-house movements around this price point, so it would have been great if they put the in-house movement or the Tudor movement that they are putting in some of their other models in this watch. That would have been great to see, but it is only an ETA movement, which is a little bit of a letdown, but still they do finish it and bring it up to high-quality standards, so it's not too bad. The case overall is finished great quality. The dial looks great. It's got the classic Navitimer look just without the chrono dials. So overall, I think they did a good job with this watch, and I think that this watch will be able to appeal to a different demographic than the full-size chronograph. So I'd like to mention that this watch was lent to us for the purposes of this review by Continental Diamond in St. Louis Park, Minnesota. They are a authorized dealer of all Breitling timepieces, and this one is currently for sale there. And thank you guys for watching this video. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. Thanks.